So first and foremost, again, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. And I found your Instagram profile, and I know you have a massive amount of experience in the finance industry.
Oh, I don't know about massive, but
Yeah.
it's been a few years.
And it's like, one of the things that I look for is if I go into someone's Instagram account, can I sense who they are based off of, pictures and what they post, things like that. And I just thought, oh my God, this woman is amazing. I have to
Oh,
get her on to ask her questions. So yeah.
well, I appreciate that, considering I'm a very private person. And it was very hard for me. A lot of people kept telling me, you should get on Instagram and share, some of what like people that call me and I give them advice and they're like, you should be sharing more of this. And I'm like, I hate the idea of it, but thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's good. It gets us out of our comfort zone, but it's
Yeah.
in a good way because, you're putting yourself out there in different platforms for people to find you.
Yeah.
So that's always good.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, how would you, just a little backstory, how you got started in finance, how long you've been doing it. Yeah, how you got started.
Okay. Well, I got started very early. I originally started after school, after college. I was still here in Delaware, and I started working part-time at a law firm because I kind of thought I wanted to go that way. And I was like taking classes to be a paralegal. I was working kind of like as an assistant to a criminal defense attorney, and really liked that a lot. But then I decided out of the blue I wanted to move to Charlotte, North Carolina. I was 23 at the time, and I just wanted to be somewhere on my own for a while. Had never really gone anywhere without any family members. Everywhere I went was with family members, or there was a family member there when I got there. So I was like, I just want to do something in my 20s on my own for a while. And I lived in Charlotte for about 10 years. And so when I got there, of course, I had half of a paralegal degree, not even completed. I had a great letter of reference from the attorney I worked for. And that was my college degree, and that was it. So of course I couldn't just walk into a law firm. So I took a part-time job working in data entry at a bank, at Bank of America. And I said, I'll just do this until I learn the city, meet some people, and decide what I want to do. And that's how I got into it. They winded up saying, oh, you're doing a really great job after 90 days. And they asked me, did I want to come on full time? And I was like, well, I've already been doing it. They offered me a pretty good amount of money at the time. What year was that? I don't even know. I was in my 20s, and I'm much older than that now. So I stayed there, did data entry for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years more. And then an opening came up in another area of the bank in their trust administrator. And they were like, you handled this so well. Actually, it was my manager who came to me and said, there's an opening. I have a friend who was a senior manager in the trust department here at Bank of America. They want to know, I want to know if you would be interested if I gave her a call and said I had somebody who would be really good for it. And I was like, sure. And she was like, I've always been watching you. You're really good with detail. You've been great with all the customers. And I'm like, I've been here a year and a half. It was one of those situations where, everybody was mad because I'd been there a year and a half. Why is she getting off? But whatever. So I went for the interview. Everything went great. She called, recommended me. They hired me on as a trust administrator. I really liked that. Really loved dealing with, it was in the high net worth wealth department. So I worked with people who had trust accounts or whoever was, hired to handle the account for them. I did all the administrative parts. I handled their incoming, outgoing wires. Some of them we did as much mundane things as paying their bills for them. A lot of them did checks that they wrote to charities and things. We had to make sure they went out on time, and just things that we managed their trust.
Yeah.
I did the administrative part, and I did that for about 3.5 years. Really liked it. And then from there, it just kind of escalated. I went from trust administrating into securities. Same kind of situation. It's been the situation pretty much all. I had someone come to me and say, we have an opening in securities.
Just more opportunities.
Yeah. And it was great because it was like a ladder. Each one was a step up. So then I went over into securities and investments and worked there at Bank of America for a while. Maybe like another, 4 or 5 years, because I only worked at Bank of America while I was in Charlotte, and that was a whole 10 years. I went from data entry to trust to securities. Then my father got ill. And so I just wanted to come back closer to home. So I moved back to Delaware. I went temporary again, just put my resume out on some temporary agents, got a call right away, went to JP Morgan, worked in their investment banking, really liked that for a while. And all of these positions are pretty much back end. I never, every time I told people I worked at the bank, they were like, oh, can you give me a loan? I'm like, I don't deal with customers that come into the bank. I'm in the corporate part. I don't, I don't deal with walk-ins. So all of them were all back office, which I really enjoyed. As I progressed in these different ones, I found that was like my little niche. That's what I really loved. I loved how it worked behind the scenes. And that's what I think is so fascinating about finance. Is a lot of people don't realize how it pushes and generates what happens in your business, any business. And I think that's what I really started to find, it fascinating was around the JP Morgan time, because I was like, this is a pretty big bank, and I was working in the investment part. I dealt with clients all over the world. Some days I had to come in early because we had a call with Switzerland or someone in China, stuff like that. I did that for about 1.5 years. Then I stayed in Delaware, of course. So all my other positions are here in Delaware, which is great because, of course, this is a banking. A lot of them are incorporated here. So they all pretty much have an office. I worked there for about 2.5 years in investments. And then I went to Citibank. At Citi, I did 3 different positions there until I left and started, my own consulting. I went from investment banking at JP Morgan to global loans, which I really liked also. It was pretty much the same. I was doing syndicated loans. And what that is, do you know what that is?
I've heard of it, but I am not.
Yeah, because I tell people that I worked in global loans, and that's when they would be like, oh, can you give me a loan? But it was syndicated loans was where we would, they would generate a loan, a particular, but a lot of other banks were part of the loan. Like it may be a $500 million loan. Citibank, we originated it. We were the originator, but we would have maybe 2 million of it. JP Morgan might be in that loan with $1 million. Another bank, Credit Suisse or something, maybe in it for 3 million. It would total up to 500 million from a group of banks. And we would do the administration and manage that. We would do the interest. I mean, can you imagine the interest on that? We would do the interest, make sure it was paid out to all the different banks when it was matured. Most of them were 30 days. I did have some that would roll daily, which was interesting, but that was nice too. I enjoyed that. That was another situation where I got to work with people all over the world. Very fast paced, very tense, because one thing I found is the higher you go, the more tense it is because you're dealing with more money. So it was everything had to be done yesterday, and it had to be done right, because if you messed up, it could be $1 million, $2 million, which happened. I seen it happen on the floor where, the bank just lost money because a trade was put in backwards, or something like that. Did that for I did that the longest, like maybe 5 years. And then I moved to the back end there. They had an opening, and I was just interested for a while, actually kind of working / the IT and the controls. So I went to the controls. I left global loans, went to the controls in the very, very back end. And that was where we would do internal audits, where I would just daily, I didn't cut off my phone. Sorry about that. I would we done daily audits. I would just make a list. We had pretty much control of the whole floor, where we had our own passwords, where we could tell someone, where we could go in, look at what they've done for the month, and then tell them, pull us the backup for this, just to make sure they're doing it.
Yeah.
So we pretty much done whatever an external auditor would do, just to make sure we were all, the bank was always up to par. Because if we would catch things all the time, and sometimes we would use it to change procedures. Like we would come back and say, this was just so easy, for you to make a mistake. You didn't, but let's make this change so that this, because an auditor might come in and say, why aren't you doing this? So we done internal audits. We did the procedures. They never wanted to pull people off of their desk for work, for stuff like that, which I found helpful. And that's kind of like how I got into, I'll say that when I got into how I got into my consulting. The bank would say they had their own team like us that would do their procedures, keep them updated. I would go and sit with some at their desk, watch what they'd done all day, and write it down. I probably a little more updated now, but I would write it down, make up the procedures of what they do.
Yeah.
And then document it, put it in a formal PDF or whatever, send it out on the floor. And they were all stored in a particular place. These are the procedures. These are the updated procedures. We had to keep them dated so that the last one was the one they were using, stuff like that. We did the procedures, we've done policies, anything control wise on the floor, for the floor.
Like quality assurance kind of.
Yeah. We worked with the underwriters a lot, the closing where they close the deals, stuff like that, just to make sure, all the I's were dotted, T's were crossed. We kind of did that, the back end. Everybody else did their work. We made sure you were doing your work right and that there were no issues, that you weren't stealing money or that you couldn't really. I did that the longest, probably a total of 5 years. I really liked that a lot. And I found that was something I just wanted to keep in. So I kept all along, I'm keeping all these little pieces. I like trust. So I liked every little piece of it. So I was like, how can I one day do this? Then I went back up to global loans because they had a shortage. They had brought on so many new deals and everything, and they needed someone else. So I went back up there. And I did that for about 1.5 years there. And then I kind of went back and forth with controls because I was, I was going to say I was really good at it, but I was good at that. So they would come to me all the time and they would say, we're backed up back here. Could you help out? We already know, so. Yeah. And I think I always do tell them that's an audit issue. Why do I still have access to stuff back there when I'm up here? And they were like, we know, but. So I did that probably for the last part of my career there at Citi. Really liked it. But then I had some, health issues in the family again. I have a son who at the time was 3 and diagnosed with autism. And it was a commute for me because it was in Wilmington, Delaware. So it was like an hour drive. And when I started therapy with him after he was diagnosed, and I started therapy with him and stuff like that, I took all my vacation days, used my days off. It just became to the point where, I had, my father was still ill, and I was like, this is just a little too much with the hour drive. I had my mom taking, she was helping with my dad, plus she was helping me with my son. She was keeping him, picking him up after school, taking him to some appointments when I couldn't get off. Because, with corporate, it's like if something comes up at 5 and you were supposed to get off at 5, you're not getting off at 5. You're not going to get off until this is done. Especially when you have someone from maybe, up in New York, senior VP calling down saying, we need this to go out today.
Yeah,
it's got to be done. And like I had to cancel a lot of appointments for his therapy. And I was like, I just need to make a decision, and I did, and that's when I left. And I said, I'll just, start doing the same kind of work, see how I can do for myself. And I've been doing that for about 10 years.
Oh, wow. When did you start?
That was
you consulting?
2010.
2000. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You've been doing that for a while. How, do you acquire clients from, you know, like people you know, referrals, things like that?
Yeah, and I'll tell you a little bit about that's a little bit while I'm on why I got on Instagram. I did start because of course working, I made a lot of talking to people. One of my very first clients was one of the VPs out in California. I never met him face to face. We talked all the time. Every time he had a problem, I helped him. He called my phone by mistake once.
Wow.
Because he was looking for some money that had landed in a wrong account. And he's just noticed that maybe somebody in Delaware controls could help find the money. And I could. And it was a situation where he was like, I know this isn't your job. I know, you know, but I was like, okay, you know, but I have access to be able to look in. And I told him just tell me as much as he could about the money and I would try to find it. And I think he was thinking, if she finds it, okay, if she doesn't, whatever. So like I called him back like 2 hours later and I had found it. And he was like, he couldn't believe, he said, number one, I can't believe you actually did it. He said, because most people would just say, that's not my job and let it go. But we kept in contact after that. So every time he had a problem, he would call me and he would be like, I know this isn't your area. But he was really nice. And I'm saying that because when I left, you know, I sent an email out to everybody. It was nice working with you, whatever. So he contacted me and he said, I saw the email and I just wanted, you know, to thank you for all the help you gave me, you know, blah, blah, blah. But out of the blue, like a month or so after I started, when I finally was like really trying to get clients, because it took me a while to get, you know, the license, get everything set up, he gave me a call. And he was like, I have a friend that is starting an investment banking company. And I told him that you would be great to help him set up his back office. He said, and to do his procedures and everything. And I was like, thank you. And he was like, I just remember all that you did, you know, for me. And that's where the majority of my work came from the beginning, was from the bank. People I had worked with. I do a lot of corporate work, which is great because they have huge budgets. So, I do a lot of them, helping them update their procedures. Yeah, they're, you know, you can tell them, oh, it's going to be 10,000. They're like, oh, okay. You know, they don't mind. They just want it done. I do a lot of procedures. I work with a lot of corporate companies, but the reason why I wanted to be on Instagram is I want to come down a little bit because I noticed, I don't know if you noticed from a lot of my posts, what I'm trying to do is to get more like maybe business that are in the 6-figure range to start really taking the back office and the procedures and policies and things a little bit more serious. Like, because working in the corporate section.
So that's what I wanted to know more of, was like, why did you decide to go into consulting, and who your ideal client is, and you were kind of getting into that right now.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah. Most of my clients that I just kind of fell into were corporate clients. And that's, I would say right now, it's still 80% of my clients are corporate clients, or just executives within a company that are managers of a particular department. And they, you know, either, also 80% of my work is referral based. I don't do, which I guess is unfortunate. I don't do a lot of advertising. I don't do a lot of marketing. So I'm eventually going to have to learn that type of thing, hire somebody, I guess. But that's where most of my work came from. But she's adorable.
Yeah, she's just back there doing her thing.
But that's what I'm trying to move into now. My goal, what I want, is to start working with companies, startups, companies, anyone, even solopreneurs, but that are making enough money now that it's, you know, making a difference, but they're still not grasping. They want to go to that next level, but they're not grasping that, you know, you really need to structure. You have to structure a smaller business like the business you want it to be. Like it's I wouldn't say it's too late when you really grow. I don't think really successful businesses do it that way. Coming from inside of the corporations, I see that's what I found, that this is what makes them run well. That's what I realized when I moved from all these different departments. I was like, because I was on the inside, on the back end of it, like people who walk into a bank, a big bank, think, you see the tellers, but there's so much more that, they're just there to be the front facing, to say, to
Mm-hmm.
smile, and not just, I wouldn't
Like
just say that,
customer
I'm not trying to,
service.
right. But
Yeah.
behind that, there's a whole world that is
Yeah.
making, once you give them that money and they that deposit slip, what happens to it after that? What makes you keep coming back to that bank? What, maybe it's the smiling face, but it's because your
Mm-hmm.
money is handled well. You can get your online statements on time. Money isn't in the wrong place. It's a lot that happens to make that happen.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I noticed, even myself, being in the online space, like we all want to do that entrepreneurship thing, and we don't really think about the finance side of it until you're
Yeah,
making a certain
certain
amount.
amount, right.
But if I think that if you set that up, even if it's just like a business bank account,
Mhm.
and people use like QuickBooks or something like that, that's a start
Right.
managing your
Yeah.
business financing. But I know there's like a lot more that you
Yeah. But I
can
always tell
do.
people, just like you were just saying, that's doing that at the beginning is what makes it easy
Mm,
to transition. That's why so many people think finance is hard. And I always say, my little saying
I
is,
think.
finance is hard or as easy as you make it. If
Uh-huh.
you set it up from the beginning, even when it's small, people say, I don't, people always say, I don't make enough for that.
Yeah.
If you're making anything, it needs to be organized. That
Yeah.
way, when you start making more, you're not trying to catch up, because that's when it's
Yeah.
hard, because it's like, now I've got all this money. It's going here, it's going there. I don't know where I'm spending way too, you find out you're spending way too much. But when you learn how to budget early,
Mhm.
when you have more money coming in, you're already budgeting it well, and that way, that's how people can see their profits grow, by managing it. And that's also the reason why I say people don't understand how a business that is doing very well goes out of business. And it's because they're
Mhm.
not managing their cash right.
Yeah.
You can make tons of money if you don't manage it well. You're
Yeah.
losing it.
Exactly. So I was looking on your website, and you have a couple offer services that you do.
Mhm.
Can you go a little bit into that and how? Yeah, just going
Yeah.
talk
And
a
I
little
and I'm
about that.
probably going to revise that a little bit because of what I'm
Uh-huh.
trying to do now. But I took the bulk of what I want to do. I have 4 services out there.
Mm-hmm.
One is an internal controls audit. It's like a mini audit where I would go through. It's a 2-hour phone call that I do with them, and I just have a series of questions uh, that I would send ahead of time. Also, some we do during the call, and we kind of go through the company's internal controls. What do you currently have? What's
Yeah.
missing, and what do you need? And then we kind of go through that. And if some of them don't have anything, a lot of what I
Mm-hmm.
do now is some people just want theirs updated, especially now where they have a lot of people online now working from home. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, we need to change the controls. It was easier when a lot of people were there. We could micromanage, we could watch them. Now we
Yeah.
put a lot of controls in place. So I've gotten a lot of work with large, mid-sized to large companies that are updating their internal controls. But that's what one of the services is, the internal controls audit. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just going over controls. And that's it. Like, do you
Yeah.
have a maker checker? Is one person making checks, another person is signing them? Do you have dual person, or some offices have one person doing everything? I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, you got to do separation of duties, things like that. Policies come in with that, and procedures, if it's needed. Then I
Mm-hmm.
have the risk management, where companies, they may have some internal controls, but they're not really looking at what are the risks that are still out there around their money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like fraud and things like that. Some smaller companies might not be interested in that, might not need that right now.
Yeah.
But mid to larger companies that I work with they do risk a lot. Once a year, annually, or maybe every quarter, they'll go through and do a risk assessment and make sure that they've got everything, policies in place to make sure that they're covering any financial risk. And that
Mhm.
includes credit risk and things like that, like how you deal with your clients on a financial basis. I have a lot of people where I have to really get on them about accounts receivable. I tell them, do not let it go past. It will most likely go past 30 days sometimes.
Mhm.
But I've had clients that come on and have people like 90, 120 days past due. And I'm like,
Wow.
when it gets to that point, you know, I wouldn't say you're not going to get it, but you're going to spend more time and
Yeah.
more money trying to get it. So I tell them, really have a policy in place that really stipulates 60-day is it,
Yeah.
after the, and like we clean all that up in the risk management and things like that. Um, then I have the uh, financial management plan where I combine it all. Where
Okay.
that would be with someone who either wants all of it updated or they don't have any of it. So I spend like a 5-hour call with them going over everything in their back office. Like, what do you have? Who do you have? What do they do? All of their roles, how your procedures looks, how your risks look. That's everything. Any policies that you have that you might want to put in place, even if you're
Mhm.
small, you need to still have a way of doing things, the way to tell the
Yeah.
employees. And it also helps if you're small to have that in place. So when you grow, it's easier to delegate because here it is. Here's what you do. I don't have
Mhm.
to stop everything because we hired 2 people, And then I have the final one, which is the finance management plan with implementation. And that's where I actually work with the person. The other one, I will sit with them 5 hours, take in everything they have, and I'll
Mhm.
use that to just come up with a PDF plan and send it all back to them.
Yeah.
We'll go over it, and then they're on their own. But with the other one, where I'm working with them one-on-one for 30 days, I'm actually like in contact with them and their team, their other staff members throughout the entire month and while they launch it. Because some people feel like if you're not there, I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah. So it's like
Some
a done with you
yeah,
service.
done with you.
Okay. I like those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the last one. And that's
Yeah.
30 days. And that's for people who, I do the risk management like that too, if they want, but it's basically set up for that last one. And that's where I'm with them all the way, where I help them. We go through what they have, what they don't have. I develop it. We go back over what I've developed. Then I help them piece by piece implement it into their business.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's have you worked with an online company who's just like online, complete like a business coach or
Yeah, I worked
something like
with
that? Yeah.
2 companies like that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what kind of geared me towards this. They were
Okay.
small. One was, it's an agency,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a marketing agency.
Yeah.
And they were growing. They had 5 employees to start, and they had grown to 12. And they were like, they were even thinking they were going to hire more like in the next couple of months. So then the CEO had contacted someone else who told them to contact me. And they were like, do
Mm-hmm.
you think you can help us they were like, we don't have anything really in place. The
Yeah.
CEO kind of had been doing all the training and everything. And she was like, as we grow, I want to take more meetings and just,
Mm-hmm.
get more clients. She said, I want other people to do the work. She said, we have people doing the work, but it's more like they constantly have questions. And that's the thing I tell people. That's when you need procedures, when people have to constantly ask you, what do I do with this?
Mm,
How do I do this? If there's
I
procedures
agree.
for it, it makes it a little
Yeah.
easier. So I've worked with an online marketing company and not coaching, but I did another online company, but it was more, they were into athletics. It was like
Okay.
they were moving to online they had just
Oh, okay,
started
okay.
during the COVID
Uh-huh.
last year. They were moving to doing everything online, but they were like, how can we send out, things to every person that's an instructor that's going to be doing it.
Yeah.
It was easier when we could meet. They could still meet online, but they were like, we wanted something on paper, a document to send out to them to say, this is how, we're going to do the day. This is how. So I helped them with that.
Okay. Okay. That's really good.
And
I
then
have a
that's
lot.
what sparked, and that's what sparked me. That was the first two I
Uh-huh.
had. And then I was like, I really want to work with smaller companies, that
Yeah.
are kind of waking up to the idea that, I need procedures, I need, policies, I need things in place
Yeah.
to gear, and it also makes your company look, it's uniform. It's like everybody's doing
Mm-hmm.
the same thing, and it helps with the output of your work. I tell people, that's kind of like a franchise. That's why they're successful, because everywhere you go, it's what you expect.
Yeah. And I think another thing too, it's like, let's say someone does have a successful online business and they have, money saved up or whatever the case may be. What can they do after that, to either diversify their money or invest it in something,
Hmm.
for their business? Because at the end of the day, they can't, well, they can if they want, but being smart with their revenue.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things I also wanted, that drives me to a point that I also want to bring up, that we used to do a lot, I saw at the bank, that I don't think I see a lot of, well, I don't see them talking about it a lot online, is
Mm-hmm.
using your finances to figure out what points, like when you want to scale, people just think, oh, this is a good idea, whatever. But you can look within your finances and say, we do really good here. We could take
Mm-hmm.
this particular service and move it, because a lot of people just pick one. And it's like, well, is that your most profitable one? Is that the one that has the most promise? If you look at your numbers and use your
Yeah.
finances to guide you, it's all, the
Yeah.
data is all there. It's like you just learn how to use it. You can use that to grow your business and to move into other areas, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. So one of the things that I help online business owners with is systems, processes, workflows, all of that. And right now, I'm diving into data tracking. So looking at, a lot of entrepreneurs use different platforms, social media
Hmm.
platforms, and sometimes they have a really good month
Hmm.
and another might be a little slower. But on the month that they did really good, they did an extra two interviews
Uh,
with different podcasters or something.
right.
So it's hard to determine where their clients are coming from if they're not tracking that
Tracking.
information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that I personally love to dig into when it comes to businesses, is really diving deep into, okay, where are our clients coming from? Which service is the most profitable one? What can we
Yeah. And
do
that's
to
something
increase the
I'm gonna,
price?
yeah, and that's something,
Yeah.
honestly, I'm gonna really need to start doing myself in the next month or two, because this is a new area for me. So
Mhm.
first I have to see, I'm even looking for ways to, everybody keeps telling me, oh, you should be on LinkedIn. You're more LinkedIn, but I
Mhm.
know on LinkedIn it's going to be the same of what I have. A lot of corporations, a lot of
Yeah.
higher, and I really want to help the smaller. And
Mhm.
I see
Who are
them
looking
more,
to scale,
right. And I see
yeah, for
that
that
more on
growth.
Instagram than on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. So I kind of focus on Instagram, and everybody keeps saying you should
Mhm.
be more on LinkedIn. But I'm like thinking about, like what you just said, I need to look at the data and say, where is it? Or how,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say I want to convince people, but, what can I do differently on Instagram to help to kind of break through where people are kind of closed off to, it's either your big business or your small business. And my
Yeah.
thing is, if you're a business, you need this, you
Yeah.
know, and that's my issue right now. Like, how can I convince
Yeah.
people that you're not small? I mean, you may be small, but that doesn't mean you don't do things well.
Mm. Have you ever done or consider doing like a workshop or something like that, just to see if
Yeah,
your audience responds to that, if they're,
yeah.
interested?
I've been looking into the last couple of weeks of doing a course, like a little small mini course on
Yeah.
what I want to help them with. Um, and then either making it free or just very, very low cost, like $25 or something,
Mm-hmm.
or webinar or something like that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have thought about that. Yeah, because
Good.
for me, the online space is very new. I think the online space is, I would say difficult, but challenging for finance, period. Because it's such an area that so many people are afraid of. And when they see
Yeah.
finance, they just kind of like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. Well, you can change that,
Yeah, that's what
make
I'm
it so
trying. That's
it's,
what I'm trying to do.
yeah.
I'm trying to help people see that number one, it's you have to deal with it because it's what makes you. Without it, I say it all the time. I try to put it in all my posts. If you don't have money, you don't have a business.
Yeah. And
So
if we all have to pay taxes
yeah, you all have to
too,
pay
and
taxes.
yeah,
You all have
yeah,
bills, business license, everything. I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's yeah, I'm like coming up with a bunch of ideas for you.
I appreciate it.
But that's very exciting. There's so many opportunities out there, because yeah, there's people who do finance who either talk about like crypto and
Yeah,
stuff like that. But I feel like what you are doing, or what you're trying to do, is on the kind of like building that foundation and
yeah,
for the business, which I think it's very, very important.
yeah.
Um,
That's right. That's right. Head on, straight on. That's my
yeah,
goal, to build the foundation and to have it there at the smallest to the largest to whatever. Like for it to earliest that it can be there, the better. Because
yeah,
people always say when I grow, but I'm like, you want it to be an easy transition. You don't want to grow, and a lot of businesses, that's what sets them back, their growth,
hmm,
because then they're running, they just hire a bunch of people and think, and now I need more people that are going to do it, but now you have all these people, you don't have procedures, you don't have policies, everybody's kind of doing what they want, because I've actually gone into some businesses and sat with different people, and like the other person would say, this is how I do it. And then I would say, well, this person that he says, yeah, I know she does it that way. This is easy for me. But I'm like, okay, that's
yeah,
not how you run a business. You don't have one person say, this is easier for me to do it this way. It's like, this is the way it's done,
yeah,
period. You know, and I think a
exactly.
lot of people run their businesses that way. They just, kind of, that some of them may not even know what the employee is doing. They just know it's getting done,
Yeah,
you know.
definitely setting those expectations for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so if you can give, for a solopreneur, someone who's been in the, who has a business, who does have a business bank account set up, they are managing their expenses on a spreadsheet, doing basic stuff, but they're doing something. What would be a one or two tips that you would give to
Uh,
them?
Um, well, first of all, I love spreadsheets. I'm a big fan of them.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, "Oh, I mean, a lot of people are afraid of QuickBooks, whatever." I'm not
Uh-huh.
that big of a fan of QuickBooks,
Yeah.
as much as I am an Excel spreadsheet. I think
What do
it's
you
very.
use?
I use spreadsheets
Oh, just for, oh, okay.
or for myself,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking about using Sage.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
when I bump it up a little bit. But right now, I've used spreadsheets. We use spreadsheets at the bank.
Yeah.
We had a lot of things that the system at the bank couldn't control, because you can manipulate it to do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
So since I'm so familiar with it,
Just stuck
I'm
to
a
it.
workbook lover. Yeah, but I'll
Yeah.
probably go into Sage or something. But I would tell them, if they have the basics set up, which is very good, like a bank account, like you said, and they are tracking their expenses and everything, I think the biggest thing is to monitor their cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a lot coming in and a lot going out, even if it's little pieces, I would tell people do it weekly. A lot of people do it, it's mandatory to do it monthly, of course. But I
Mm-hmm.
would say if you have a lot of little pieces going in and out, just check. I would tell them to check their cash, check your bank statements, your go online, because you get your bank
Mm-hmm.
statement once a month. I would tell them to check that online banking at least weekly, like maybe at the end of the week, and just go
Yeah.
through your debits and credits and make sure you're familiar with everything. And that way you stay on top of where you're at with your cash.
Mhm.
I think that's the biggest thing for someone starting out, a solopreneur especially, is to
Yeah.
stay on top of your cash. And that helps you in like many ways. One, your credit, and to keep your business credit looking good in case you need
Mhm.
to, borrow money, take a loan, or you're looking for someone to invest in you. They're always, the first thing they're always, anybody's going to do is look at your cash. An investor will look at your cash. Another bank, before they give you a loan, will look at how much cash you're carrying. It just helps your credit. What else would the biggest thing I would tell them is to look at your cash. And then again, definitely stay on top of your accounts receivable. That ties directly into your cash. And I think a lot
Mhm.
of people kind of let that go. Um, have some type of policy in place ahead of time that you can send out with your invoice, and even have it on the invoice that says after 30 days. You should always have a late fee after 30
Mhm.
days, because that will encourage people to pay within the 30 days. And then after 60 days, you know, I would not recommend them go past 60 days, because then you
Yeah.
run into a cash flow problem. You still have work going on, and
Yeah.
you still have bills you're paying, and you're waiting. You never want to be waiting for money to come in.
Yeah. What
So
about
that's
those? Sorry, go ahead.
no,
Finish.
that's I think that's the top two. And then I would say definitely hire slowly, you know, um,
Yeah.
because I see a lot of people. I mean, you can't, it's very good. I'm very big on separation of duties. But if you
Mhm.
have a person who can do more than one thing while you're still small, do that, because a lot of people, okay, then it's now I'm adding another thing, because this just run into it. Hire slowly, and definitely learn the difference between a resource and a budget. I tried to cover that once on a post, because I think so many people don't understand that a financial resource is when you have the money to pay for something flat in full. Like say, I always use the example, say you're going to rent a piece of equipment for $5,000 a month. You have $5,000. I mean, well, you're going to purchase it for $5,000, and you
Mhm.
have $5,000 in your bank account. You have enough to purchase it. That's a financial resource. You have the resources. A budget would be, let's say you need a piece of equipment that is $5,000 a month. A lot of people think in business, I have $5,000 for this month, I can rent it. And then they're thinking the money that they make every month is going to pay for it. And so they think they have the budget for it. But the budget is, you would have, if you want to rent a $5,000 a month piece of equipment, you need to have $60,000 if you want it for, what is it, a year
Mhm.
in your budget, already. That's a budget
Yeah.
is, so many people think a budget is, I have the money to start it. A
Mhm.
budget is you have the complete. So going back to, like, I'm thinking with the employee, a lot of people think I'm making good money, I'll hire the employee. But I always ask them, do you have the money to pay their salary for at least 6 months to a year? And they'll be like, no, but the business is doing good. But I'm like, what if next month the business isn't? You're not going to pay them. You have to have,
Mhm.
you have something like that. You have to budget for, and they'll say, oh, I have the budget. But I'm like, if you don't have it for 6 months to a year, you don't have a
Yeah.
budget. People don't understand that's what a budget is. A budget is not the money's coming in, the money's here. You
Yeah.
set aside 200,000, whatever, for their salary. That's your budget for their salary.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's say if someone is looking to hire an employee and it's going to be $1,000 a month. So they know that in the future or later on this year, they want to hire, they should start saving or adding that to their budget for like the first 6 months. And then when they have the 6 months, then they can hire.
That would be ideal.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Just
That's how I
because.
understood what you said.
Oh,
Like,
I'm sorry.
no.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
idea. Yeah, that's the budget.
Okay.
When you actually have the money and you set it
Yeah.
aside. A budget is money that's set aside. It's not waiting for any of it to come in. It's kind of like the same with personal finance, where people get that wrong. And that's why budgets don't go well with so many people, because they think,
Like
I
they
want
just
to buy
overcomplicate.
this dress that's $500.
Uh-huh.
I've got $500. I have other things, but I've got more money that's going to come in. The $500 for the dress should be out. Like, I've already got the money for my bills. You're not waiting for it to come in. You've got it. You're
Yeah, you
setting
have
it
it
aside.
already.
Yeah, you're setting it aside. So
Okay.
yeah, the ideal way would be to wait so you have 6 months of pay,
Yeah.
hire the person, and you have their pay 6 months. No matter what happens in the business, they're going to get paid. You've gotten a contract with them now, and you've hired them, so they can sue you.
Yeah.
You have to pay them now. It would be ideal to have the year, but like I said, you can start with 6 months as long as you've done the financial projections and your business profits are going to keep going up, because you don't want, like, at the 7th month not have their salary. But like, you should know 3 months in how your profits are going. And that's why you have to stay on that cash, because one thing I hate to see businesses do is to, like, slowly realize, oh, we're not going to have enough money in 2 months. But I'm like, you should have known that 2 months ago. If you were constantly up on your cash, you can see when cash, you can look at your cash coming in, your accounts receivable and your accounts payable, almost weekly, monthly. Stay on it, and you can see the difference. There's just a number there that is the difference. That's yours in between. So, and it's just amazing how so many people don't do that. And that's, like I always say, that's how a profitable business fails. People will say, but they were making so much money, but they didn't manage it.
Yeah. Another thing too, it's a lot of people rely on like Stripe or PayPal, if that's the form of payment that they use, or another like merchant account to track all their stuff.
Oh, yeah. No, and I would never recommend that. That's a big no. Definitely use either you're looking at your actual account is what I would say. Use your statement once a month and go in at the end of every week and look online.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Well, whatever you decide to do, whether it's a course or a workshop or something, I am very, very interested because I know I try to stay away from finances. Like, I know the basic stuff. Yeah, because I feel like it can be a little intimidating. But I've never taken the time to look into it or really learn it either. That's why when I came across your account, I was like, I have to talk to her.
I'd like to do a course or workshop, like on something like that, to explain the good side of it, like how it's easy, how it really relates to every other area of your business. I think that would make it easier for people to swallow if they can see it from a point of view of the things that do interest them, because everybody's not like me. Everybody doesn't love finance. So it's like, I want to find the point of entry that you do love and still say, this is how finance affects that. Like, you like, I guess, the back end the systems and things.
Yeah.
I would have to find a way to show you how finance is driving that and affecting that, and how you can use your financial data to do that. Like, what systems do you need? What systems can you afford? When can you afford them even? I mean, it's even a time thing. It's like you can look at your numbers and say, we made this much 2 months ago, this month, we'll probably make this next month. We're not going to really be, and then that's another thing. Timetable. People will say, I've got enough, I'm going to buy this next month. But I'm like, you may not be able to get it until 6 months. And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, look at your bank statements. Pull them from 2 months ago. Your salary, your profits are only going up at a certain percentage. They're going up, but a certain percentage. If you go out and make this purchase now, you're going to use a big chunk of your profits.
Yeah.
And now you're going to be paying catch up. If you wait until you're this much percentage over your profits and then buy that, you'll be better off. And they're like, just something simple like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just like,
You
oh
have
my
a look
God.
on your face like, yeah, but I hate finance.
No, yeah, but I've worked with several online business owners, and I don't think a lot of them do this.
Well, see, that's why I'm trying to get into this space and why I wanted to chat with you. And I thought it was interesting, even to help me to clarify what I'm trying to do. I really don't think I'm seeing that so much as I'm looking at other accounts on Instagram. I'm like,
Yeah.
they're constantly talking about how much they're making and how well they're doing, but I don't see anybody talking about how they're managing that and and
All the
they're
expenses, like
right.
you can make
And
$1 million,
and I see a
but
lot of people are getting into now building teams and stuff, which is great. But I think people are feeling, like you were saying, the whole entrepreneurship thing, they're feeling pressure to have a team, and that's good. And you should be able to delegate. You can't do everything. And if you want to be the CEO, you have to work on the business, not in it. That's true. But I think a lot of people are jumping into the idea of it, and they're not really financially ready. And then then they think, where did I mess up with the business? You have a great business. You had a great business idea. You just didn't manage the finances well on a timetable. Maybe you can hire a team member, but like I said, maybe you needed to wait until that 6 months. You jumped in and hired somebody doing marketing who's really good, but you can't really afford that person right now.
Yeah.
Or you could 2 months ago, but now you've run out.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. It's like, either if you're going into the online space to start a business, you have to make sure that you are financially stable to leave your job as well.
Yeah, that too.
And then with what you had said before is, we hear these things, oh, you need to hire a marketer, you need to hire someone to do your social media, hire all these people. But yeah, if you don't know what your cash money looks like, then it's only going to last a month or two.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is people, when their businesses take off and they start doing well, that's when they think, let me hire this, let me hire that. And like I said, that's where they run into trouble, because it's like, do you have enough to pay that person for 6 months to a year?
Yeah.
And they find themselves scratching. They pay them, but it's like, it's hurting now, And I'm like, what I would rather see you do is like what a corporation does. They don't hire someone until they have a budget for the salary.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I would tell someone. Definitely stay on top of your cash. Know the difference. Make sure that you have a true budget for things, and make sure that you are on top of your accounts receivable. Do not let it go past 60 days, because it directly ties to your cash.
Yeah. Great tips. Great tips. So if someone is interested in connecting with you, what would be the best place to reach out to you?
By email.
Email? Yeah. Okay. What's your email?
I have I have the one I gave you is just me, Beverly. My work one I use for business is Beverly@davisfinancial.co.
Okay.
Or they can, but I think on the website, that one I usually don't give out unless I'm actually working with someone, like they've signed on. But I have info@davisfinancial.co for just people to ask questions or inquire. I don't know if you noticed on the website, I do free consultations too, where they can just schedule, to talk and see. Because sometimes they'll look on there and they'll say, well, I don't need procedures, I don't need risk. And sometimes they really don't know what they need. So it's fine for me to just talk to them and see where they're at in their business and go that way. So I do consultations, but email is the best way, because I check that every day and I can put it right on my calendar, and it's the best way for me to stay in line and make sure I'm going to meet them.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, I am so happy that we had this conversation. I am
so nice to meet you.
I'm gonna reach out to you because I need you in my life.
Vice versa.
Um,
I mean, I always need a lot of professional people around me too.
yeah, I love that. Um, so yeah, I think if we're all good to go, we're done.
Okay.